Hello, everybody. Hello, Switch Chat. I'm Joelle Maletis, and I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist. And just a reminder for today, although I'm a licensed therapist, nothing that we discuss on today's stream is to be taken as medical advice. So if you have any questions or concerns, please go to your licensed professional in your area. Welcome, everybody. I am so excited. We're going to talk about stress, and I'll give you at least 3 therapy hacks that you can do at home to combat stress. And so make sure that you drop comments and questions into the chat, and I'll do my best to address them all as we go along. And please watch until the end. Switch always has the best gifts. And if you follow the link that will be dropped into the chat at the end of the live, you will be able to get that too. And so with that, let's get started. So welcome everybody. Let me know who you are and where you're chiming in from. I'm in sunny California. And so I know we have people listening from all over the globe. So please say hi. And in the meantime, I'd love to tell you about stress and really the definition of stress according to the American Institute of Stress. And basically what they said is stress is generally considered a symptom, and and defined as being physical, mental, emotional, and psychological, and it's strain and tension that we feel and experience when we're in areas that demand more than what we perceive to be as normal attention or normal distress. And so what that means is that it continues to activate and we feel it in a bunch of different ways. And so I'm super curious to know how y'all feel stress. Do you feel it physically? Do you feel it emotionally? And what does that look like for you? And so, yay, I hear somebody's from Canada and Tasmania and from Japan. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. So I'd love to know how you all feel stressed. So for me, I sometimes it's physical first. And so I'll get my heart races, I talk really fast, I get super nervous, probably like I sound right now. Sometimes I get headaches and I'll get that tension headache. So stress shows up for me physically. And then sometimes it's emotional where I might cry or feel withdrawn. Sometimes it can feel like anger. So I have somebody from Denver. Anne is chatting in from Denver. Brenda from Massachusetts. Nanny7 from Japan. Oh my gosh. Sarah says that she feels it in her gut. Yeah, a lot of people report that they feel it in their gut, and stress can affect our GI issues. People can report constant diarrhea or chronic constipation, IBS or irritable bowel, acid reflux. Those are all stress related, and it can even get to the point where it can be ulcer related. Ian says that he feels it in his shoulders and he tenses up. Yeah, me too. I notice sometimes when I'm driving and I'm at the steering wheel like this, and I have to tell myself to relax and take a deep breath. So there's your first skill. Not really our hack yet, but your first skill is when you're sitting at the stoplight and you notice that you're really tense in your shoulders. If you tell yourself to drop your shoulders and take a deep breath, sometimes that'll relax for sure. And then Naveed says that he feels like stress just, his heart beats really fast and it's in his chest. So check this out. This is my favorite thing to talk about with stress is, do you know that there's a good kind of stress? So when would y'all feel good stress? What would that look like? Anybody have any thoughts? And lots of people are chiming in. Sarah saying she feels it in her neck. Amanda feels nauseous when she gets stressed. Yeah, me too. So good stress can actually have the same physiological responses. So if you've ever felt excited or nervous and something really good is about to happen, right? You can feel hungry, which is someone wrote in our chat that they feel hunger. You can feel that heart racing. People talk about having sweaty palms with good stress. And so we call it eustress. And so eustress was defined by Dr. Fasone as anything that sufficiently challenges and changes your experience that impacts and empowers area of growth. So impacts and empowers areas of growth. So we can feel that physically, like if you are getting ready to run a race and you get that burst of energy, we can feel that psychologically where we're like, okay, we can do this, and we kind of pump ourselves up emotionally and we get ready to like go in and do a YouTube live for the first time. And we can feel that emotionally where we feel good, we feel excited and energized, we're ready to go. And so good stress looks like excitement, and it has some of the same characteristics of stress that's not healthy for us. And so Sarah said that when she has a test, it helps her focus, or, completing a goal. I'm definitely one that likes to check off a list. And so I'm a list maker, and then I'm like, okay, I'm really stressed out to get it all done. But then I check the things off, and at the end of the day, I'm like, yay, I accomplished 2 out of the 10 things I had on my list. Some people report butterflies. Sarah, totally on it. Jenny says neck strain. And yeah, so trying to figure out if that neck strain is coming from like negative stress, or if it's coming from something that you're excited about, where your whole body can tense up because you're excited. And so stress shows up in all different ways. And so sneaky signs that you're stressed. So what are some of the sneaky signs that you're stressed? So I have a few on a list. And again, drop into the chat what you're thinking too. So for me, like, I'm always tired, always hungry, or not hungry at all. So it's really polarized, one extreme or the other. People report headaches, their heart racing, stomach hurts. So you all identified how these are sneaky signs that that you are totally stressed out. Pimples, cold sores. Some people that talk about achy joints. And again, if you think about holding your body so tightly, then that makes a whole lot of sense why you would have all of these signs. And so one of the things that we're going to come back to are these sneaky signs of stress. But when we get to that first therapy hack and how do we notice things and then what to do about it, we're going to come back to I'm going to ask you all to identify your own signs of stress. And so then when you implement these skills, you're able to figure out the tells. Oh, I'm starting to get a headache. I'm starting to have that neck pain. I can't stay focused, Anne said. Brenda said she's moody. Yeah, when all of those things you start to notice, the idea is that the skill will help you calm some of that down before it gets to a point where you feel like it's unmanageable. So there are 4 different kinds of stress, or 4 different types of stress. And so we have acute stress, we have chronic stress, we have something that we call episodic stress, and then that positive stress, or the eustress that we talked about. And so when we have acute stress, it's usually a one-time response. And so it has, if you think about it, acute stress as having a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? And so we can look at that from a good perspective. I am thinking about buying your first house, the birth of a baby, getting married, buying a car, seeing family on the holidays. Like, these are all happy things, and yet there's points of stress. So they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. We're excited or stressed, nervous going into the event. We may experience stress during the event, and then the event is over. And so that stress point ends. And so when it's more of that negative stress, then we can think about having to do a presentation or a meeting at work. Maybe we feel stressed or unprepared for that. We go into the meeting, that stress level becomes extremely high, then the meeting is over, and then the stress level over time diminishes. So that would be an example of acute stress. Chronic stress is when it continues, it goes on and on and on. And so for some people, that can be having a very stressful job. I'm thinking about someone who might be ER nurse, doctors, nurses, first responders, firefighters, where they have this chronic level of stress every day. There's not necessarily a beginning point or an end point. People that run companies, parents, if there are any parents out there, then that can be a chronic level of stress, and sometimes it's good stress and sometimes it's bad stress. It just never really goes away. We have episodic stress, which typically comes from what we call a repetitive trigger or a repetitive experience. So, for example, if somebody really dislikes being in large crowds, every time they're in large crowds, they're going to have a similar stress response. Sometimes that can come from trauma, and other times it comes from what someone would say is, I just had a bad experience, or I have some social anxiety. I don't like big crowds. It's sensory overload. So we hear that a lot when people are talking about episodic stress. So it comes from the same kinds of episodes, and then it comes and goes. When I'm not in that event or environment, I'm not necessarily having those kinds of stressors. And then positive stress we talked about. And so what are some ways that you can identify acute stress versus chronic stress? Like those of you that are listening, do you notice that one fits you more than others? So like for me, I feel like I have both types of stress with the work that I do. Being a therapist, I get to do super fun things like YouTube Live, which definitely has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and provides some stress, right? And then I have the chronic stress being a trauma therapist. And I hear a lot of people who have very horrific experiences that can cause an ongoing amount of stress. As much as I love my job, it's still a stressful environment. So I'm curious to know what you all feel you have more of: acute stress, chronic stress, or episodic stress. So what do you think? Like, where do you think that shows up in your life? And I'm looking off to the side, I'm looking at our chat. And so Naveed says, oh, I start eating more. Sarah says chronic stress because of kiddos. Yeah, so if you have kiddos, mine are a little older. Chronic stress because of an illness, absolutely. Yeah, and we know that pain and pain levels make our stress levels higher. So there's a direct connection between pain and chronic illness. And sometimes chronic illness can be caused from having high levels of stress, like ulcers, and sometimes chronic illness can cause extreme levels of stress if someone has autoimmune issues. Even people who have had COVID have reported having chronic levels or increased levels of stress. So definitely, Sarah. Brenda is chronic stress because she works in healthcare. Yep, it's acute, it's chronic, it's episodic, and it's positive. It is all for Brenda. You feel it all, sometimes all the time, because as much as you love your job, it's super stressful. Cynthia, blah, 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 blah. Cynthia says chronic stress from being a caregiver for a difficult parent. Absolutely. And so these are all ways that in some ways we can't necessarily control those areas of stress. And we choose, like I choose to do my job. I love my job. It is also stressful. I'm a parent. That is also stressful. I mostly love the children. No, I do love my children. But these are things that sometimes we can choose to make changes, and other times we can't. And Brenda's saying, yeah, especially being in medical care with everything that's going on right now. So we have different patterns of stress. And so our patterns of stress are two different, so they're two different columns. And so we have a great slide, patterns of stress, that illustrate that component. So we have two different columns. One is unpredictable, it's extreme and prolonged, and it's sensation based. In other words, we five senses kind of come in, we feel flooded, and we feel a lot of vulnerability. And then we have this other column that creates patterns of stress that are predictable, they're moderate, they're controllable, and we feel tolerance or we feel resistance. Feeling that we have resistance or resiliency is the way that I like to think about that. And so the idea is that although we can't get rid of all of the unpredictable extreme stress, we absolutely can get to stress being a little bit more predictable sometimes, not all the time, because we're not looking at perfect, we're just looking at improvement or better. So I always want to shoot for better, not perfect. And we want to look at ways that we can have a little bit more control in our lives when it comes to stress. And even that good stress, even identifying the good stress as, oh, I'm excited, I'm not necessarily stressed, or I'm anxious and I'm nervous because it's new and it's exciting and I'm looking forward to it. Sometimes just naming it for ourselves helps bring that stress level down a little bit, and it helps that physical response diminish as well a little bit. Okay, so now you get to do your first therapy hack. And so it's this five-minute mental health checklist. And so when we go into this 5-minute mental health checklist, there are questions. And so I have a couple of questions up there on that next slide that you can ask yourself. And so going through this cognitive experience where you ask yourself questions, what can you identify? And what we're looking at are what and how questions. When we go into why am I experiencing this? Why am I feeling this? Then we start ruminating, or we spin. And so if you think about like a hamster on a hamster wheel, we keep going around and around and around, and it never ends. And so why keeps you processing, and what is moving you into solution. So this 5-minute mental health checklist is our first hack about solutions. So what are some questions that you notice that you ask yourself, or ways that you redirect yourself when you're feeling stressed? Does anybody have any really good things that they say to their self? For me, a lot of times I'll tell myself, I'll use a thought stopping technique first, and I'll say, okay, stop, take a breath. What do I need to do next? Or how can I decrease my level of stress, right? And so have I been reducing my social media? Is that making me stressed out? Unplugging, not listening to the news. And there's a balance between being checked out and apathetic versus self-care. And so really what we're trying to identify is the self-care. Delete Instagram. Yep, Sarah, I get it, right? But then I download it the next day, right? So one of the tricks that that I always have my clients work on, and that I do, is I log myself out of all of my social media accounts, and then I log myself back in. And so, and it's that extra like 2 seconds of effort that helps me calm down, which is, am I looking at it because I'm needing something right now that I'm not getting? Is it a distraction because I feel stressed? Or if it's making me feel stressed, it's really hard to disengage and log out. But that's a really great trick, is logging in and out, or deleting the app and then putting it back. Other Sarah said, you know, how much water have I had today? Shirley said, take a breath. Yeah, for me, Shirley, that is the key, which is, okay, stop. So I visualize the stop sign and I tell myself, stop, take a breath. And the breath work is big belly breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth, and slowing down, really slowing down. And then for me, it's moving into solution. Okay, what's next, right? So Sarah points out, did I eat today? Did I drink enough water today? Sarah also says, she tells herself, everything happens for a reason. Brenda says, I tell myself to breathe. And then Shelby was saying, I counter my negative thoughts with positive ones. And that's super helpful too. Again, noticing that you're getting out of the, okay, why is this happening? And then what do I need to do to help take care of myself? Did I get fresh air? We know there's so much research about the environment, being in nature, going for a walk and exercise, and also what we can even say guided and mindful meditation through walking. Put your favorite tunes on, stop and actually experience, like, what flowers do you see? What do they smell like? Can you hear the birds? What does the weather feel like? What's the temperature like? And so when we get into nature, that helps us reset that fight, flight, or freeze response that is usually being keyed off with stress. So Jenny says, is it worth stressing over? So asking herself, is it worth stressing over? Yeah, totally. It's that value judgment. And so sometimes I'll say, okay, on a scale of 0, where it's not stressful at all, to 10, like, oh my gosh, this is driving me bananas. How bad is it? And a lot of times in my head, I'm like, it's a 15. And it's like, okay, Joe, what do I need to do to just get to a 5? And then if I could get myself to a 5, okay, what do I need to do to get myself back down to a 1 or 2? Because 0 is back to that perfection piece, and it's really hard to do. Katie says, seeking out connection instead of self-isolating. Yeah, absolutely. So for some people who are introverted, that quiet time, reading, turning off electronics, and turning off outside stimulation helps decrease stress and rejuvenate. Extroverts, it's finding that connection and being really mindful about connection, going for a walk. Yes, Shirley, that helps tremendously. And Sandy said the serenity prayer. Yes, absolutely. For some people, religion and spirituality and that spiritual connection, mind, body, spirit component is fundamentally important to them. And for others, they don't necessarily resonate with that. And so either way is okay. And whatever that spirituality looks like for you, sometimes that can be helpful. So taking those 5 minutes to go through a series of questions really helps. And I love the chat. Everybody's got such great information and feedback. It makes this really dynamic. So thanks for participating. So we can move on to the 5 senses and how do the 5 senses help us manage stress. And so all of it is really becoming very tactily aware. So when you're in your body, being overly stimulated in your body can make your mind spin, but it also makes you feel the stress more. And so when we go to that slide, thank you, we have these 5 senses that we are constantly tapping into, and they are constantly continuing to receive information that's not conscious. And so a lot of this, it's really hard to determine what's conscious and what's unconscious, because it seems so simple. And I want to say, you'll hear me say this all the time, is really easy concepts to understand and really hard to do. And if it were that easy, y'all'd be doing it, right? Everybody would be doing this. And so easy to understand, not easy to implement. And so sometimes trying to trace down the root of what's really stressing us out is too difficult. So focusing our attention into solution and paying attention. So what do we see around us? Can we identify all of the different things that we see, and sometimes even naming it? I see books, I see a plant, I see a ballet book, right? By identifying what I'm actually looking at. Touch, what do things feel like? Can I feel, is it cold or hot? What do my lips feel like? What's the air on my face feel like if I'm outside? So that tactile, sometimes touching something, having like a hot or cold drink, touching that, chewing on an ice cube. So getting that sensation, taste, right? Your favorite beverage, some warm tea, sometimes some lemon water. So something that's got a little bit of a kick to it will help you learn to identify that taste feature of your senses, and then also how that taps into your stress. So for some people, certain smells, certain tastes really reflect their stress levels and also stress them out. And I'm seeing all sorts of smiley faces in the chat, so forgive me. I'm not necessarily reading it as we're going through, but I'm going to try and catch up everybody. Sarah saying, love the smell of fresh air. Yeah, I love the smell of flowers. And so there was another research study done about 10 years ago that talked about having fresh flowers and plants in your home. And they noticed that people reported feeling happier and less stressed if they had fresh cut flowers in their home. So again, sort of that implores the smell and also the sight component, touching the rose petals if you like having flowers, and then sound, calming music, having a white noise machine. There's a ton of apps that have great guided meditation or rainforest sounds, whatever you like. Your favorite tunes. I always have my go-to pumped up, I can do it playlist, and then I need to wind down or calm down playlist. And then for me, part of my sleep ritual is listening to waves. And so I put that on to help sort of calm my body down, calm my mind down, and de-stress that way. And so what else? Like, what else do you all like? I see fresh air. If only you were a millionaire. Yes, I know that would be great. Me too. What else do you like? Like, what's your favorite taste? People talk about peppermint. They like to chew on a peppermint or to chew on a piece of gum, and sometimes that will help de-stress. Or the smell of mint or menthol can help people de-stress. So aromatherapy is a super powerful technique, and that can help. We know lavender and chamomile tend to be calming, and citrus smells, tangerine, lemon, orange, lime, are activating and energizing. So a diffuser can also help manage stress. Cup of coffee. Yep, I know there's lots of coffee drinkers, and having a good cup of coffee. Coffee can also, with the caffeine, make us feel more stressed. So just watching how much coffee and getting water with your coffee is always helpful, not at the same time. Being around friends, totally. Incense, yep. Incense is that aromatherapy. There's all sorts of, you can buy a diffuser, incense, sprays. They even make lavender scented pillows that people say are super helpful. A square of chocolate. Yes, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of a square of chocolate. It definitely helps with that, those happy brain chemicals that we get with chocolate. So mindfulness, yes, absolutely. Singing karaoke, doing a puzzle, coloring. If there are any anybody out there who is listening who likes to color, adult coloring books have been a thing for, I think, pre-COVID, but during COVID, the sales of adult coloring books went through the roof. So that's super helpful. People are returning to knitting and crocheting. I actually just read an article yesterday about not 20 something, but teens and early 20s learning how to knit and crochet because it's that tactile touch that helps de-stress. Walking the dog, massage. Thanks, Anne. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, Sarah, just not so much coffee that you find that you're getting, all of the shakes and that stress response, that comes from caffeine. So sometimes when you're really stressed, watching the amount of caffeine, switching to decaf if you just love having a coffee and it's a really stressful day, sometimes that helps. For other people, it doesn't affect them at all. So I love all of these suggestions. It's super great, and this is part of what goes into our next therapy hack. So hack number 2 is all about grounding, and so we call it the 5-4-3-2-1 exercise. Y'all might have heard about it already. We have a great slide on it, but 5-4-3-2-1. And so basically what we're doing is we're identifying 5 things that you can see. So what are 5 things that you can see? And you really want to point them out. So for me, I see a ballet book. Actually, the pink book title, I don't know if you can all read, is Alice in Wonderland. So I see a ballet book. I see Alice in Wonderland. I see a glass bowl. I see a vase with some flowers, and I see a ballet book. So what are 5 things I can see? You can identify it as colors. I see pink, I see blue, right? And you really want to say, I see. So you're resetting your brain with that. So 5 things you see. 4 things you can feel. So I can feel, I have a bracelet on, that it's rough. So I feel my bracelet, my nails are smooth, my sweater feels soft, my desk has sort of a grain in the wood to it, and my coffee mug is actually not coffee, water, and it is cold. So going through and picking out 4 things. So 4 things that I feel. The smoothness of my sweater, my bracelet being rough, my nails are smooth, and my desk has that wood grain. And then 3 things you can hear. So right now it's actually dead quiet here in my office, but typically on a normal day, I can hear birds outside. I can hear the parlor fan that's above my head, and sometimes if I'm not seeing clients and I'm by myself, I have music on, I can hear the music. So really identifying 3 things that you can hear. And then 2 things that you can smell. So currently I have a kind of a flowery perfume on, so I can smell that. I have a little bit of orange vitamin C powder in my water, so for energy, so I can smell the orange in my water. So 2 things that you can smell, and then 1 thing that you can taste. And so if that's a hard thing to accommodate, right? I could take a sip of water and taste that. Again, a lot of times people really have mint as their go-to. And so mint is activating. It also is focusing. And so that goes back to the aromatherapy. Other people like citrus, and it just depends if you're chocolate. Someone said suggested chocolate earlier. So, something like that. So this 5-4-3-2-1 technique helps ground us back into our body. So when we notice that we're really stressed out and we're starting to spin in our head and we're overthinking, we're starting to get panicked or worried or anxious, when we get back into our body, it calms down our mind. And so that previous slide where it was that 5 minute mental health questions is really identifying what's in my mind and how do I get the spinning piece to stop. So when I'm in my mind, I really want to go into my body and start to get my body to calm down and focus in on what I'm noticing. And then when I'm in my body and I notice that I'm having a lot of my heart's racing, and we kind of identify all of those stressors back in the beginning that you're all talking about. I know Ian identified, being really tense in his neck, feeling hungry, feeling sick to your stomach. When you notice that you're really in your body and you're feeling all of the stress and the anxiety, having that 5 minute check-in where you're asking questions of what and how and moving into solution helps calm the body. So you're titrating back and forth between being in your body and being in your mind. And so I hope that makes sense. If you have questions, please ask questions. Shelley talks about journaling and a coloring app. Totally. Reading for pleasure. Yes, 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 yes. I know for all of us that do a lot of reading or listening to books for work, always having something that's for fun, a podcast, a book that's fun, reading something that's not work related. And yes, journaling helps tremendously. Even writing a bullet point list if you're at work and you don't have a lot of time to do a process journal, and Switch has some amazing process journals. Just writing a bullet point list helps too. So part of this is all about micro self-care. So micro self-care is not a new thing, but it's sort of a new buzz. And we're starting to think about different ways that we can implement self-care on a much easier level and quick and easy. So like lighting a candle, for example, taking 2 minutes to do a mindfulness or a grounding exercise, listening to 2-minute of 5-minute guided meditation can help. So these are all micro self-care things that you can implement that will help manage stress and ease some of that response. So like, and then, listening to music, talking with a friend, journaling, going for a walk, all of the things that we've identified, you can look at those as micro self-care. And so sometimes renaming things, or what we call reframing the issue or the stressor, can really help. So a stressor is anything that you've identified in your life that's causing you stress. Again, good stress, bad stress. I think Sarah had mentioned earlier that, being a parent was one. Working in healthcare is another, right? So having ways to implement micro self-care where you're doing it on a daily basis and all the time throughout your day is super helpful. So talk to me, folks. What are you thinking at this point? Like, from the first 2 hacks, what do you think would be really easy for you to implement, and what would be more challenging to implement? What do you think that would work really well for you when you think about that titrating between your mind and your body? So like I have candles going all the time, unless I'm in my office when clients are coming in pre-COVID. We didn't do a lot of candle lighting, but in my home office, I always have candles. Sarah says, I find on days that I work out, I'm way less stressed. Yes. So physical activity, and working out is hard. For some people, they don't have, Amanda says, yep, same, working out. Sarah says, I continue to tell myself especially when I don't want to go to the gym, to go to the gym. Yeah, and I'll admit, this is my second career, and so I was actually a dancer by training and a professional athlete, and there are moments where working out for me is just it's emotionally painful. I don't want to do it. I don't want to get out of bed. I have a really hard time with that, and so I have to reframe working out a lot, which is okay, I don't have to go to the gym and lift weights or do HIIT or an hour of cardio. Like sometimes I can just go walk around the block, and that's enough to just get my body moving, and sometimes that's enough to kickstart me wanting to go work out. Calming music and aromatherapy. Sandy says Tai Chi. Yeah, Tai Chi is wonderful. Tai Chi, yoga, and there's all different variations of that. For people that are joining in from all over the world, weather dependent, doing yoga outside when the weather is nice, if that's something doable for where you are, can be just a huge emotional uplift and a huge stress release. So yeah, getting that body moving is really helpful. What else works? Or that you notice that micro self-care that really helps sort of de-stress your day-to-day activities. So we can look at healthy coping mechanisms for reducing stress. And so a lot of this stuff we've talked about: herbal tea, baths, exercise, meditation, talking, and music, right? So these are all things that are ways that are healthy coping mechanisms. People have different relationships with food, and so if you notice food isn't on the list, for some people that is a healthy coping mechanism for stress. For other people, that's not a healthy coping mechanism. Yes, Amanda, listening to podcasts before bed instead of going on my phone. I am guilty of being on my phone and have started to put it on the other side of the room so I'm not checking emails while I'm trying to go to sleep. Sarah, anything with animals and nature, absolutely. There's so many animal shows and nature shows out there. Even just watching a few minutes of that before going to bed. There's a reason why cute puppy and cute kitty videos always go viral, right? It makes us feel good, and that happy emotion helps us de-stress. And so getting back to food, for some people, when they're stressed, reminding themselves to eat if they notice that they don't eat when they're stressed or they feel nauseous when they're stressed. Doing that kind of self-care is helpful. For other people, that's not. Other people notice that they tend to overeat or eat more when they're feeling stressed, and so finding other ways to get that same sensation. So going back to that taste component of having something that you really enjoy: herbal tea, lemonade, some water with something fizzy in it, things that make you get that taste sensation, right, without kind of leaning into what you would define for yourself as overeating, and that's a very personal place for people. So we can use food. Food is not always the best coping mechanism. Sitting in the sun, yes, lots of vitamin D. And so if you live in an area where there's not a lot of sunlight, you can, a lot of different, Amazon is one, there are a lot of different sites that you can buy a vitamin D lamp, and it's specifically designed to create indoor sunlight. I know micro-growing plants, fruits, vegetables, and flowers indoors is really popular right now. So that kind of light and having plants in the house is helpful for mood. And yes, sun does wonders. Just remember to wear your sunscreen. Um, so you don't get a sunburn and then you're more stressed out. But sun is one does wonders, and vitamin D, getting that through sunlight definitely helps all of the stress levels. Okay, so hack number 3, if you're ready for that, hack number 3 is all about daily affirmations. And so this slide, I love this slide, and I love this. I love this tool, but I'm going to age myself. I don't know if any of you are SNL fans, or you used to watch Saturday Night Live, but there was a skit a long time ago about daily affirmations. So anytime I hear that, it cracks me up. And humor is also a great stress buster. So anything that can make you laugh, if you've got your favorite, comedian that you can put on for a few minutes and have a quick laugh, couple of really great jokes, following something funny. Humor is a great stress buster. So daily affirmations, and there's a few on this list, right? I accept myself. Someone said earlier in our chat, right, is it really worth stressing about? I think that's a really good kind of an affirmation, right? That check-in of, do I really need to be worrying about this? Am I doing my best? Not perfect, right? But am I doing my best? And maybe that's not ideal right now. Is it all that I can give, right? I'm safe. So checking in with your basic needs. Are you safe? Hungry, tired, angry? Do you need to move into a situation where you will be safe? Sometimes the stress is telling you something super important. And so really paying attention to that is helpful, right? I can overcome this, right? So that positive reframing and direction. Shelly says, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough. Yeah, I think, Shelly, are you referring to the SNL skit? Because that's my favorite, but I use it all the time. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough. And there's this model, the psychologist is Winnicott, and it was originally designed for parenting the good enough mother. And it wasn't about, okay, it's good enough, who cares? It's more about, it's good enough. Like, if I give everything I can, at what point do I say, this is good enough? I've done a good enough job. And can that be okay for today? And so for me, the daily affirmation comes in at the end of my day. And so the way that I use this as a hack or a stress buster for me is, at the end of the day, if I can look at myself in the mirror and say, okay, no matter how bad I screwed it up, whatever mistakes I made, did I have good alignment? Did my intentions feel like I was in the right place? If I made a mistake and I hurt somebody's feelings, can I go back and apologize? And that's usually always yes, right? So tomorrow, can I go back and try again? Can I give myself some grace and space and forgiveness of, okay, well, I guess I blew that. I didn't do that so well. I can try again tomorrow. So for me, that's the way these daily affirmations work. And so, Shelly, you're cracking me up. I'm so glad you got the SNL reference. Yes, people like me. That's another one. But that's why I crack up when I read this card and think about this stress buster, or this hack number 3, that daily affirmations, because I really do look in the mirror, just like the whole skit was, and I kind of go through, and it's like, okay, am I working in integrity? There are times where the answer is no. And when the answer is no, it's like, all right, well, what do I need to do to fix this? And can I leave it and come back to it in the morning? Or is it something that I'm going to be stressing out about all night? And I'm human, honestly. Sometimes I'm stressing out about it all night. And then it's like, okay, what do I need to do tomorrow to fix this, or to bring it back? Right? And try and help correct the problem. And so sometimes for me, that's a really great way to start to ease some of the stress or the anxiety that has built up throughout the day. Is did I do life today good enough in that model? Was I my best or better self? And was I working in integrity? And sometimes when I can say yes to those things, I can let go of some of the stress. And yes, the switch journal gave me some good ideas. So I started with affirmation journaling. Yes, the stress journal, I'm sorry, the switch journal for stress is super helpful. There's a lot of different products that Switch has. They all work great, and journaling helps. And we know through research that it does help. Um, Tomorrow's a new beginning. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And these are all great ways to bring this back. The other thing that's not on this list that I want to add is we talked about ending the day, and I sort of end my day with these daily affirmations. I start my day with gratitude, and again, all of this is well researched. And so, what we know about beginning a gratitude practice is that people who've had a gratitude practice for 90 days or more report being significantly more happy and less stressed, and they report more joy in their life. And so, gratitude is something as simple as, I'm grateful that I, can support my family. I'm grateful. For me, sometimes it's really, I'm grateful for ice cream because that's where I'm at for the day. It's been a rough week. It's another hard day, and sometimes I'm grateful for the kids. I'm grateful that I have an amazing team that I get to work with every day, and they're wonderful. I'm grateful that we've gotten through the last 2 years, which has been really difficult, and I'm grateful for ice cream. And so identifying 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for in the morning and doing that as a practice tends to start us off in a better mood. And if we can keep that practice going, then what we find is people become more resilient when it comes to fighting stress. And so having a gratitude practice and then a daily affirmations in the evening, and you start to bookend your days, and we practice it as a skill, and we just do it as a skill. And if you could actually see my computer, I have stickies like all over my my screens behind me and my computers, and a lot of times they're reminders like, remember to do your gratitude in the morning, remember to do your affirmations in the evening. And when we bookend our practice and we create these new habits, it absolutely helps us decrease stress. Okay, so I know I've given you, I think, more than 3 hacks, but I promised you at least 3. So this is part of the journaling experience. And again, Switch has some great products, but do a quick screen grab of this too, self-care checklist. And what you want to do is identify, and we're going to do this at the beginning of the day, and then we're going to do it at the end of the day. So waking up and going, all right, what are my wins? I'm going to start my day off really great. And so what are my 3 wins? I got myself prepared to do the Switch Live on time, had a great staff meeting, and I'm super excited for my team. And, I had a great evening with my family the night before. What are my needs? I absolutely need to make sure that I do a couple of meditative exercises before I get my day going, because it's going to be a really stressful day, and I need to make sure that I get in some food and water today and I take care of my basic needs, right? So what are my wins and what are my needs? And I think Shelby had said in the beginning that positive reframe and positive affirmations. And so that's really what we're doing here. And so we don't want to say wins and losses, right? Or put that in a negative. We're really looking at reframing to a positive to help us decrease our stress levels and starting our day off well. This self-care checklist you can do throughout the day if it works for you as a stress release or a stress buster. And then at the end of the day, what were my 3 wins for the day? I managed to get through having to deal with a really hard client, and I was able to sit through that session knowing it was going to be hard for me. I got out and I exercised today, even though I didn't want to. And I did a great job articulating my needs to my partner. And what do I need? I need more time, and I need to remember that I have some really good stress management tools, right? So I'm bookending my day, starting off with what's my self-care and ending with what's my self-care. So let me just jump back to the chat. Shelly said, I use a gratitude jar and I add 3 things each day. And then at night before bed, I read the contents of the jar. I love that. I love that. And I'd love to know, Shelly, do you just keep adding more and more? I'm sorry, I said Shelly. I meant Shirley. Forgive me. Shirley, do you add more and more things in and then you fish around and pick three things out, or do you empty the jar out every day? So I'd love to know how you do that. Anne said, I get really tired of being resilient, and I guess I need to do the 3 things to fill my bucket. Yeah, resiliency is hard. And remember I said, if it were that easy, everybody would be doing it. The self-care is hard. The reminders are hard. The gratitude, none of it is easy to implement, easy concepts. And it's really hard to make changes and make these into habits. And it is exhausting. And so sometimes all of the stuff to help with stress makes you more stressed out. And so if that's the case, don't do it. Right? And like, if you notice, like, I'm just like, the trying to be resilient is causing me stress. Sometimes it's take a nap. And that's the one thing that we actually, I failed to put on our slides. I apologize, but power naps are a thing. Taking a nap, trying to go to bed a little earlier. If you have the luxury of having a mental health day or being able to take a half a day or a day off of work, sometimes doing that, making plans with friends, canceling plans with friends and saying, I just want to binge watch TV. I feel like during COVID, I've watched all the Netflix, not just a few of the Netflix, but all the Netflix. And sometimes I notice like I'll default to that and sort of getting into some behaviors that over time aren't so great for me, instead of the resiliency, because the resiliency feels taxing. So I totally get what you're saying with that. And so Shirley said, it depends on how tired I am. 3 cards gives me 9 positives before bed. So it's great way to start. Yeah. The other thing I've done too with clients is I've had them put in all of the stress busters and the things they're grateful for, positive reframes like Shelby was talking about, all the things like just here's what I can do for myself, those micro self-care, and write each one on a little slip of paper and put that into a jar and then pick from those. So I want to make sure that I leave time for any questions or comments before we wrap, if people have more things to say. You can always reach out to us, and I'll drop my information in the chat. And I just, in fact, I'll do that right now while I'm letting people kind of come in and say any last remarks here. But feel free to reach out to me. I know we're going to be doing these lives on Tuesday. And Barb has an amazing live, and Haley has amazing lives. So We have some just great products from Switch, and we have lots of ways for you to be involved in all the things that we're doing and just trying to help everybody manage their self-care and their wellness. So thank you all so much for joining us. And I hope you've learned a little bit. I hope it was helpful. Please let us know what you think, and continue to check us out for new things that are coming up. We've got lives happening multiple times during the week. We've got a new product that's coming out that I'm going to get to host. I'm really excited. So stay tuned and watch our social media feed for more information about that, and make sure that you check us out. Remember, wait till the very end and follow the link so you can do the quick survey and get your free gift. And thanks so much for joining us. I hope this was great. I've had a fun time, and thank you all for all of your comments. And take good care, and I'll talk with you soon. Bye-bye.